Behold the true short king himself, Alith Gravelbake. Watch him run all over the place, the little rascal. Born in the year of our Lord Armagh, 280, on the 15th of Granite. A rock-solid month to be born. His mother was an accomplished wrestler, unapologetically ripped, just absolutely shredded, and an abbot at the Monastery of Chanting, virtuous and holy. Even as a young child, Alith drank his way through his youth like he was trying to put a dent in the kingdom's supply of booze. He was on a first-name basis with half the tavern keepers in the region. Then this liquor. For some reason, because why not, he decided to be a cook. But here's the strange part. It was at a conquered goblin pit in the southern reach of the kingdom, called Scorpion Bowl. Made some grub for the occupying soldiers and slop for the gobs. Yeah, that lasted about 4 years before he got bored and thought, you know what, screw it, I'm gonna be a poet instead. He moves again to the hillocks of crazy sculpts and studies poetry under Master Ubel. For a few years, he wrote poems and drank his fill, really making the most of those formative years. Then came the spring of 324. It started like any other lazy day, Alith half-drunk, writing some poem about Ballista arrows. But then the messenger shows up, carrying a letter with a royal seal. Big news. King Barim, his father, had kicked the royal bucket at the age of 151. And just like that, at the tender age of 44, Alith was crowned king. And let me tell you, it's good to be the king. The one true short king of the embattled Picts. By the way, embattled means ready to fight. And if you don't know what a pick is, go ask your stepsister. This king's all about giant bushmasters, huge snakes with bites that'll ruin the entire weekend. He's all, yes, truly majestic, truly. You know you gotta be a few fries short to look at a deadly snake and think, oh yeah, I want me one of those for my fortress. Bushmasters he likes, but put a rat in front of him. He'll probably pass out. Can't handle that. Bring on the snake, though. What kind of sense is that? Well, it doesn't matter, because he's king, and it's good to be the king. Don't even mention rats around him. This dwarf loses it. You'd think he saw a forgotten beast. Rats! He's jumping up, throwing stuff, ready to call the army in for one rat. Meanwhile, the bro is slamming back bumblebee mead and chilling with deadly snakes. But a little rat? Nah, that's the line. That's where he draws the line. Alright, here's the thing with this dwarf, right? The king. Every month or so, it's where are my ballista arrows? Make me more arrows. Are you nutting with me? He's got enough arrows to shoot down a dragon, or 10, or even 20, probably. But no, the dwarf needs more. More? What's he got planned? He's all, well, better to have and not need than need and not have. You know? Like he's prepping for an apocalypse or something. When you're that obsessed, the arrows aren't the problem. It's you. But Alith is king, so the dwarfs make more arrows, because it's good to be the king. This king drinks nothing but alcohol. Nothing. Not a drop of water. And that's not just on weekends, bro. That's literally his daily hydration plan. The short king wakes up like, breakfast, ale, lunch, wine, dinner? Oh, it's time for some more ale, and maybe some mead. I don't even think he knows what water looks like. He says water is for the weak, that it's for knife-eared elves and dim-witted humans. And then so it is. It's good to be the king. This dynamo dwarf hates dignified people. Hates them. He's all about, look at these select sober suckers, all posh and polite. Meanwhile, he's a king chilling on a masterwork throne, gold crown on head, flowing sumptuous robe, waving a masterwork steel short sword around. But yeah, the ridiculous ones are saying please and thank you. Sure, bet. So get this, when one of his mandates, usually to make more ballista arrows, gets ignored, he can't cope. No chance in hell of him letting it go. He's like, that's it, no more self-control. Whoa, slow down, your majesty. You're supposed to be running a kingdom, but one dwarf forgets to make your precious arrows and suddenly you're like, to hell with everything, let's go nuts. But he's the king, so everybody just goes with it. I guess it's good to be the king. This dwarf's written, what, 20 books? More? Like he's got some great wisdom to share. Yeah, sure, 20 volumes on ballista arrows, deadly snakes, and deep-seated hatred for rats. What are these supposed to be? Self-help books? How to be a dysfunctional king in 10 easy steps. What could this dwarf possibly be saying in 20 books that he couldn't say in 2 words? Make arrows. This is a 99-year-old dwarf who throws a fit if he doesn't get his way. We better stop to think about that for a second. He's a king. He's supposed to have some dignity. But if his people don't make ballista arrows fast enough, he's stomping around like a toddler who dropped his ice cream. Imagine if every ruler behaved like this. I wanted a new cup. Wah! It'd be chaos. And it'd be hilarious. And it would make Armok proud. This dwarf thinks he's a very, very important person. Really important? Bro, you're the short king, yeah, yelling about ballista arrows, drinking yourself stupid on bumblebee mead, and obsessed with snakes. Yeah, you're important in here, bro. Without the crown, just a grumpy old dwarf who's hurling gut from cave adaptation. He'd be absolutely fried in the real world. Good thing he's king. Like, here's a dwarf who thinks war is utterly repellent, but he values martial prowess, so he wants people who are really good at fighting. But he doesn't want to see them legit fighting, only practicing. He's the kind of dwarf who buys a sword just to hang it on the wall and complain if anyone touched it. Short King Alith's leadership is legendary in one regard. He's the only king in history who managed to rule his kingdom for decades while his capital was occupied by goblins. He kept on like nothing happened, just going about his daily kingly business in a destitute fortress, drunk as a skunk, obviously. Probably didn't even realize Worker's Eye had fallen. He did eventually relocate his capital from the fallen fortress of Worker's Eye to the newly built fortress of Cobalt Church. Brought his entire entourage there, 1 king and 29 nobles, the head general, diplomat, and outpost liaison. First thing he does, demands the construction of 4 new ballista arrows, typical. He's strapped with massive amounts of muscle and lard. Remember, this dwarf drinks. I shouldn't have to tell you booze has a hell of a lot more calories than water. A hell of a lot more. And he works, this king. Believe it or not, dwarfs love industry, and kings are no exception. He crafts rings, cute rock rings of every shape and color. He hauls rock and stone from the depths. He pushes minecarts and dumps dead bodies. He's into martial arts and practices regularly. Drunk as, but he practices. He crafts furniture too. He crafted a few of the fine doors in Cobalt Church, and is very proud of them, cracking a smile when he walks past. There are better doors in the fortress, countless masterworks, but he likes his own work, and he likes seeing it every day. He has siblings, but almost never talks to his older half-sister, or 2 younger half-brothers. They're from the mother's side and didn't inherit any royal titles, but let's be honest, that's no excuse. His son Khan is next in the line of succession, but dwarves can live to be over 160 years old, so there's an expected wait. These days, he spends most of his time drinking, praying, reading, pondering, listening to poetry, listening to stories, and socializing. He hangs out in the tavern for days at a time. Days. It's good to be the king. He's glad that he can take it slow and relax, but the quest for knowledge never ends. He sometimes goes on reading binges, cracking books down to the spine, one after another, stopping only to drink. Clearly has his priorities straight. Truly the short king of short kings. The blunder from deep under, the whiskey lover from Worker's Eye. He has big plans for the future. It's true, the country has been at war for decades. Many decades of blood, death, and despair. That's going to change. He's changing it. More goblin pits have been raised in the last 3 years than the previous 30. Only one last obstacle in the way, the dark goblin fortress of Devil's Proud. It's almost time, then boom. Once the gobs of Devil's Proud are greased out of existence, he will build a monument, a huge monument, the largest construction in the world, to commemorate the victory. Knowing Alith, it'll probably be covered in ballista arrows. It's good to be the king. He's a devout follower of the Circle of Might, a religion dedicated to the so-called rock god Thalu Snakeskin the Matched, a gigantic flying megabeast. The circle prays for sky, wind, and hunting. Always on our short king's mind is the looming wrath of Thalu, who is partially responsible for the fall of the old capital, Worker's Eye. A predicament, to be sure, a king who worships the very megabeast that's efforting to destroy his nation. A conflict of interest, but it doesn't matter because Alith is the short king, and it is good to be the king. He's really busy for a king, all over the fortress. It's his home after all. Sometimes he can't make up his mind, drink or practice martial arts, or maybe hit up the temple. This little lad is utterly unhinged, unbearably blitzed, and blissfully bottomed out, barely balancing, as he bounces between bar stools like a botched billiard ball on a big bender. Oh, also he murdered a dwarf once. Straight up in cold blood. Don't worry about it. He's king, so yeah, it's good to be the king.